topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Well, good afternoon. Glad you could join us. I'm Bill Martinez. Great to have you with us. And Maryam Henein is going to be joining us in a few moments. She is the author of the book, Operation George Floyd, a multi-layered psyop exposed. She's the director of the documentary, The Real Timeline, which is pretty amazing because when you look at it, like so much of the stories that we've been getting from our government, I would say in the recent decades, okay, this has been going on. It's typical. Go back to 9/11. Even go back further, go back to the JFK assassination, and you have a big differential from what your common sense would tell you the truth is, based and then also compared to what the government is telling us. And it's kind of hard to think about it that it's been 5 years since the death of George Floyd, and what happened after the death of George Floyd, the racial divide, the riots that happened, people that were murdered in the name of George Floyd, and on and on. Well, Maryam Henein has done us a great service in dedicating, imagine 5 years of her life and counting, to get down to the truth of what happened. And as she describes, it's a multi-layered psyop. And all you've got to do is look at the facts and the questions that you may have had instinctively just come out loud and clear. And you say, this is not true. I'm not, what the government is telling me, the narrative, it's a narrative. It's not really a true objective report at all. And I want to bring Maryam Henein on now. Maryam, welcome to the show. Good to have you with us.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you for giving me a voice.
Well, your voice is necessary. Everything about the show is about pursuing the truth, no matter where it leads, Maryam. We've been, almost 17 years in the making of the show, and have been in broadcasting most of my life. And when I decided to get back behind the microphone again, I just felt and stayed back then, 17 years ago, it was that, hey, the truth seemed to be under attack. And I love what you said. In fact, I stole it from you. I'm going to tell you right up front. And I told you up front I was going to steal that from you. And that is what you call tries, which is a combination of the truth and lies. And that's really what's happening. I mean, we're all a bunch of mushrooms kept in the dark and fed manure, right?
Yeah, that's in my book, that line.
I love it.
My colossal book.
Yes.
I want to say that it's only in retrospect that I realized that I was chosen to document this, because I'm very thorough, I'm very deep, and I go to the source, and only in the future will age like wine, right? You mentioned JFK. Well, here we are. We just had the hearings last week or a couple weeks ago, and how many decades after? So Sam Tripoli talks about dangerous and safe dangerous. There's a lot of these content influencers who are safe dangerous. After the fact, there's a delay, and then all of a sudden the truth dribbles out slowly. And we can see what's happening in Los Angeles and draw parallels with the George Floyd psyop.
Well, it's everything, because it's all clouded in deception and lies. And my audience has often heard me say is that once you accept a lie, you can't stop accepting lies. It's like a software that happens in your computer. Once your computer has an operating system to accept deception or misinformation, it will attract more of the same. And that happens to us psychologically. As you know, this is why the truth is so important, and why when we raise our kids, one of the first things we say is, just don't lie to me, right?
Right. And don't lie to yourself, more so, because a lot of people are lying to themselves and living disillusioned lives. And I don't want to live a pretend life. I was saying during the Rona regime, put enough stickers on the ground that you create a pandemic. So say a lie enough times, does it become the truth? Yes, it does. And so that's what I'm saying. I'm a record keeper. And this is a very thorough record that will blow anyone's mind, because half of this information is literally scrubbed off the internet and even in files. I mean, I was doing an active investigation, and real investigations take years. It's not
Right.
this Mickey Mouse Hollywood, 3 days, now we're arrested.
Right. Exactly. With a commercial break or two in between. Exactly. Maryam, let's go back day one. What was it that drew you to this story?
Well,
From
it's
from the very beginning.
accident. It's an accident. I think I mentioned I was in the jungles of Costa Rica. I took Zach Voorhees, the Google whistleblower there, knowing that this medical martial law would be hitting us, covering vaccines since 2012. And Zach said, my nickname is Mimi, B-Lady, but he said, Mimi, can you choke me? And I'm like, what? And he's like, I'm doing the George Floyd challenge. And so I said, if you really want to know how he died, we need to call the medical examiner, and was literally the first person in the nation to call the medical examiner. And they said it would take weeks and weeks and weeks. And then CNN had these preliminary reports. They leaked these preliminary reports, which I saw was starting to sow discord. And then, of course, within days, the entire country was ablaze. And I just didn't tap out. And I kept on going deeper and deeper, learned about Tavistock. And then I got hundreds of internal emails between the government and the MPD, which that alone, there's a reason why this book is only available right now on my website, MaryamHenein.com. And imagine working 5 years and then not being able to get out a masterpiece.
Right.
It's
right.
frustrating.
Well, that's the problem with the truth. But as you say, the truth eventually comes forth. It is such a force unto itself. And that's why they work so hard against it. Maryam, just a little bit of your background so people can understand is that you've had a background of health and nutrition and that sort of thing, right? I mean,
Well, I'm best known for directing the film Vanishing of the Bees, which was #1 in this entire country, which is not an easy feat on Netflix. And I was with the mainstream. I hail from Montreal, Canada. I'm an immigrant, and I've done quite well for myself as a lone wolf. And I reached a glass ceiling when I started covering health and wellness. I myself have reverse lupus. I'm 52 years old. That in itself is also dangerous to tell people because they want to label you sick. And so I've been covering health and wellness for a long time. I'm an accredited functional medicine coach. And I didn't plan to spend, like you said, almost 5 years of my life. I also purchased all the footage from the United States government with my own money. I mean,
that's amazing that you would have to purchase it because it should be part of public record, right? And available?
Well, it's evidence. And if you consider that Dragon Walk, Cup Foods, Dragon Walk sold its footage. So it was monetizing on arguable evidence. I mean, that's why it's like, hey, can we pay attention? Because this is Mickey Mouse world.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, I mean, at every turn, it seems that flags are coming up, warning flags and deception and that at every turn that you run into, whether it's, getting footage and how difficult it was to get evidence that should be part of the public record. And then meanwhile,
it wasn't difficult. I had to buy it. It's an exhibit after the Derek Chauvin trial. And I covering the trial every day for activist posts and seeing how much was left on the cutting room floor and in earnest wanting to understand what's going on. But I'm basically unraveling a how multi-layered it is, because we lived through the pandemic. We
Oh, yes.
know about Event 201. So this, on one other layer, was literally the duty to intervene exercise. And when you're doing these scenarios, sometimes people get hurt. And I'm just asking people to suspend what they know, that this is an operation.
Yeah, what they think they know, or as I say, what you've been told, right? And because I tell people, sometimes they come up with things, and I go, "Who told you that?" And it's interesting because when you ask that question, they'll pause and think about that for a moment and realize that it really isn't something of their own knowledge. It's just something that they've heard on television or some other talking head telling them that, as if that's the case. What is so powerful, even not just only your book, that continues on. I mean, it's 5+ years still in the making. Is the documentary, the real timeline, because you have broken everything down systematically to lay this out. And what I saw was approximately 10 minutes of the documentary, and that in of itself is quite revealing.
Yes, it's also revealing when you learn that The Fall of Minneapolis came out a year after my movie, and that they watched my movie, and that both sides of the same coin, when I'm an award-winning journalist. And this has been covered up by the conservatives as well. And I would say, it's pretty badass for someone to buy the footage with their own money in earnest, to want to find out. And I allow people, it's only an hour, 8 minutes, they can decide. This looks at what happened between 7:30 and 9:30. This looks at everything else and all the characters. And it's very, very deep and multi-layered. When the federal trial of the 3 officers, who really covered that, the manual, the police manual, was on the stand. And it was a dissection, because on another level, this was the duty to intervene. And I talk about how many bills, how much legislation, and we took this chaos and the burning of our country and named it police reform. If people just realize this is not about systemic racism, then they should go, well, what is it about then? Because it made much of a to do, right?
Right. Well, and look what happened. As you said, not only did it make much to do, but policy was rearranged, was enacted, that put America's citizens in danger. Not only, I mean, the aftermath of the George Floyd riots that CNN and others wanted to insist that they were mostly peaceful, kind of the same thing they're trying to say about Los Angeles. You see cars being burnt up and everything else, but it's, the Democrats and those on the left have redefined what a peaceful riot is, or they at least want us to suspend our own understanding and intellect to think that that's a mostly peaceful riot. But you got billions of dollars of damage. People died as a result of this. It was much more far-reaching, and as you said, as a psyop, how mentally and psychologically damaging, even to this day, has the George Floyd event been upon the people of America?
Well, I mean, we're living in a pretty sick, mediocre society. I haven't taken a thermometer to gauge the wokeness, the virus of wokeism. And again, who wants to live a lie? I certainly don't. We see the same tactics in Los Angeles that were applied to, so this is like a blueprint. Once you see the tactics, you can see how in every psychological operation, and like I like to say, sorry if it's offensive, everything is fake and gay. And fake is fake, and gay means from the 12th century Germanic origin, which means full of mirth and showy. And it's all a clown show. And I have to say, do people realize that in the wake of the Derek Chauvin trial, that there was an MIT, this was also about surveillance. So again, it's both sides of the same coin towards the same goal, because then you can justify the National Guard, you can justify surveillance tactics being amped up, and who is really paying the price? We, the people, because we are edging towards a transhumanist agenda. Do not be fooled by 4 years of golden age. It's still Agenda 2030, folks.
Right. Yeah, and the truth is under attack, and at its source, Maryam, this is the evil, and this is just abject evil, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I am claiming my ground because I don't think the typical citizen out there has lost their bank account or been smeared on television or getting cockroaches in their lunch or veiled death threats or, so speaking out the truth, I didn't know that it was being courageous. I'm just passionate and truthful woman, but now it's become courageous to speak the truth. And if you think there's only 200 in circulation, this chick is being silenced. Wow, I really would like to know what's in that book, and maybe I could even sell it in the future for money because it's an investment. I mean, no one could pay me enough money, with all due respect, for the thousands of hours. If you think about, I'm getting a blowout in West Palm for $400, and I'm selling this book for $66.66. I mean, it's just it's all topsy-turvy. What we put value to, right? We're rewarding people to I'm just doing my job, to not think for themselves.
Right, exactly. Interesting. 66.
Yeah,
I just said at the root of all this is evil, and then you give me 66.
Yeah, I priced it that way. In this book, I have bolded all the instances of 33, and there were 66s also in this psyop. And there are 254, because when I began looking into, Freemasons, or this is a cornerstone ritual on yet another layer, that I was skeptical, but you see that it's a signature. For instance, Squad 320, Squad 330. And George Floyd lived on one of the many addresses, 3333. In Texas. One of his psychiatrists has 33 books, which means he's fake. So it's a little signature of saying, hey, we were here. Could you, but not everybody else knows. It's a little disclaimer, because they tell us everything. Right. That's why I listen to a lot of things, and I'm blessed with pattern recognition.
Yes.
To be like, I see a pattern. What is being seeded into the narrative? What's coming down the pipeline? What's really going on?
Right. Yeah, it's interesting you should say that, because I've often found myself observing how people will self-indict. They just can't help, even though they'll have tries, it's part of the tries line, a little bit of truth, some lies and that sort of thing. But it doesn't matter if it's in the try category, it's a lie. It's just kind of couched and covered in
omissions are also lies. By the way, omissions
of course,
are also lies. So these soft disclosures, you can say, when people give their soft disclosures, it's a way to give their conscience some peace, because they know at the heart that they're liars and they're fake.
Yes, that's amazing. That again, with that term of self-indictment, our own conscience indicts us, and sometimes things come out. I mean, I hear from politicians, you'll hear them go, do they realize what they just said? They had a connection with the truth, but boy, they got off of that really quick.
Well, I will say, I'm sure you have religious audience members out there, but this is the age of Aquarius. This is a transhumanist agenda, and in the end, the only thing you take away with you is your soul. Your soul is eternal. And everyone has to, there's no seeming accountability now, because we're glorifying crooks like George Floyd and imprisoning God-loving people. And you don't have to be put in prison. I mean, I've been digitally assassinated for my courage. So there's different ways to be killed in this video game. But in the end, you'll just keep on coming back and making the same mistakes, and you will learn your lesson. So I believe we have an opportunity to get our house in order and our conscience, and not to get spiritual, but it takes real introspection and real honesty. But people are not honest with themselves, so how could they be honest with others, right? They're lying.
Exactly. Well, that's why I've shared the story with my audience before. I remember, I think I was about 7 years old. I was on a bus, and there's a placard up there, and it had the saying, to thine own self be true. Now I'm 7 years old. Okay, I see this, and I'm on my way to Catholic school. I'll tell you that much. So I'm on my way to Catholic school. I'm on a bus. To thine own self be true. Note to self: this is pretty darn important. There's something significant there. And so I was on a journey from 7 years old to really understand what you just said. And that is, if you're going to have integrity, if you're
Yeah.
going to be what you need to be, then you have to be true to yourself. And to me, I think that is probably one of the most grievous offenses that you do upon yourself. I mean, in a sense, it's kind of slow suicide if you're lying to yourself, is it not? In a way.
I believe so, but people, I mean, look at this society, and people are again lying to themselves that there's no real measurement that your soul is eternal. And the Catholics come from the Cathars, and when you remember, I remember that I have an ancient soul and that I carry wisdom, and that might sound Looney Tunes to someone, but I don't really care in the face of this insanity. What you're describing is really a distinction between being in the heart and being in the ego. And we're seeing a split that's occurring between people who are, I mean, unfortunately, we're zombifying the human species. It's an attack on the human species. This is a school and it's a harvest farm.
Right.
And it's unfortunate that. Go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I'm just, because you and I could go down that trail, because I know we're connected in that way. I sensed it from the first time I met you, but I want to really, again, let's bring it back to Operation George Floyd and your discovery, because first of all, you're in Costa Rica, you start getting some information, and as you understand more and more of what's going on, you start seeing, wait a minute, and you see the pattern, the obvious pattern that's taking place here.
Well,
and
I'll say that in August, when they dribbled out the body worn footage, and it was the Daily Mail that got their hands on it. And by the grace of God, the editor who wrote that story, I used to sell him vapid Hollywood information when I was in the mainstream selling information to People magazine and In Touch. So after I spoke to him, and later my hunch, I work a lot with my intuition and my hunches, that I asked myself if the Daily Mail had any links to Tavistock. So Tavistock is the lie factory. And when you understand how Tavistock has permeated all of these nonprofits, I mean, everything is co-opted and diluted. And so when you learn how the octopus works, and it's a game of incrementalism. So this has been long there's just an acceleration now with the AI, with the surveillance. And when the pandemic erupted, I mean, I wasn't scared of getting COVID. I was scared of being locked down and having my rights taken away. I was scared of this body, of this ID that we're seeing, that people are mindlessly sitting in line at an airport and allowing for their irises to be scanned, not realizing the full implications, because now we've created more zombies because of this jib jab. It's just the truth. I mean, so many people are not embodied anymore. It's like, hello, is anybody home?
That's a good point. Maryam, if you can give us a couple of minutes and explain Tavistock. You've mentioned that a couple of times, and I want our audience to be on track and understand what you're referring to.
Tavistock, I mean, to be able to summarize it in a short, there's let's just put it this way, that there was a book on Amazon that was only $5,000, and I found the PDF. And my colleague Courtney Turner, I've done shows on Tavistock on my show Truth Lives Here on Rumble. It was basically known as the Lie Factory, whether the Rothschilds, the Northcliffes, the Rockefellers, these families that slowly but surely infiltrated, all of these nonprofits. It's all part of, even our education system, Rockefeller medicine. It's all perpetuating the same agenda. So when you say they, and people are like, who's they? Well, it's an octopus. It's a system. And then you have people who are just doing their jobs. Just like in these operations, they compartmentalize. Not everybody knows the full scope. In fact, I was just listening to Stephen Greer on Jason Shurka, of course, and there's also gatekeepers. They are gatekeepers, operatives that dribble out the truth, and you have to be able to make distinctions and discernments. But he was talking about the architecture of secrecy, and so again, this is kind of like a blueprint to show how deep it is, how multi-layered it is, and even the fact that, like, on one level, you know, it allows for division, it allows to burn down statues, evidence. On another level, it allows for reform. On another level, it's like I told you the first time we did the show, it's like a Russian doll. Like you open up one doll and then, oh, there's more, and then there's more. And so the complexity and the nuance, it's like, again, it's like George Floyd and Derek worked at the same club, yo. Like, let's just go from there.
Right. Yeah. What was it? How many years did they work together? I think 2 or 3 years together.
Well, that's the thing, that there's different accounts that Derek worked there for a lot longer initially, because they put red herrings and they put misinformation, so that the conspiracy theorists, who are not journalists like me doing Freedom of Information Acts and making phone calls, and befriended Chris Martin, the dude who took the 20, befriended Maurice, the guy that was with George Floyd. I'm the only one who's talking to the guy who shanked Derek. I mean, this is like, I've inserted myself Hunter S. Thompson style. And these parrots and prostitutes are, I'll give you an example. I don't know if I shared with it first time. The federal trial, I wasn't there in Minneapolis, so I have to, it's like secondhand smoke. I'm signing up to pool reporters. So typically you sign up for one. I'm intelligent, so I signed up for all of them. So I could see their different notes and see the patterns, and then I have my tremendous context. And then I remember calling one NBC reporter. I started my career at MSNBC in Burbank. And he said, I said, you know, that's not George Floyd's car. And he said, I know. So, you know shit you're not saying. Okay. Right. Exactly. Then I said, I asked him something else, and he goes, my boss told me not to speak to people like you. Oh, wow. Like, people like me? Who's people like me? Real journalists? Who's Mimi. Your boss?
My name is Mimi. You can't talk to Mimi. What's going on here?
But who's his boss? Like a mafioso? Like, I mean, people like you, like, mind blown. So their job is to just, I'll give you another example. Alexander Kang, Black, by the way. So he was being sentenced at the same day they were sentencing Maurice, on the same day. So now we do justice via Zoom. So I went onto the Zoom, and it was 9:30. Judge Cahill is there, but there's no other journalists. So I'm like, what's going on? Then I have 3 screens, and someone tweets at me that ABC sentenced Alexander Kang to 3.5 years. Meanwhile, the hearing hasn't even begun. Okay? Wow. They had technical difficulties. And so I'm like, let me guess. You're going to get 3.5 years this afternoon. So I jump on 3.5, like later in the afternoon. Now all the fake journalists are there. They didn't expect me to be on the Zoom call. On the Zoom, right? Yes, it was like a surprise. Also, so then that afternoon, they're sentencing Maurice. So Maurice was a snitch for a hot minute. They lied to Maurice. Initially, I thought he was part of the operation, but he's a useful idiot. They're using him.
Maurice was the guy that was with George Floyd in and out of the Cup store, right?
Yeah, he was in Cup Foods. They were there earlier that day. Nobody knows that either. Nobody knows the real role of Cup Foods itself, which is in the book.
Because Maurice also had counterfeit money, right? I mean, he was the one that was caught with the counterfeit money.
Well, he says he told me he had $7,000 of his real money that day. But yes, he was caught with fake money. No one question Maurice. Excuse me. Nothing happened, right? So they initially sealed all of his cases, and he's on Good Morning America, like literally days after being concluded as having the early beginnings of mental illness. So they stigmatized him, they lied to him, they made him think that he was going to get a fresh start. And I did a Freedom of Information Act thinking he was a snitch, finding out, oh, he was a snitch for a hot minute. And then he effed off the police. So he was a loose tie. So here I am now after Alexander King the same day, and Maurice is getting sentenced. They trudged up all his cases, and they gave him 15 years for a 2018 pimping. So I was telling Maurice, I befriended him. I mean, we connected. Like I've connected with the dude who shanked Derek, who was socially engineered after the fact. He was socially engineered, and he never, like, it was a lie that he did it for Black Friday. So anyway, I just finished with Maurice. They don't give a crap about him. So at the end of the hearing, I unmute myself and I say, you are all a bunch of hypocrites. You made accounts. You made allowances for George Floyd's career criminal and addiction. How about this black man? So I bombed the whole room. They closed down the whole Zoom, and I was recording it for myself on OBS. So I went to play it. They had scrubbed my voice from the record.
They did.
Like,
yeah.
They scrubbed my voice. So then I called Maurice's mom, and I'm like, did you hear me? And she's like, yeah, the friends and family were like, who is that? It's the B lady.
Yeah.
Court bombing the Zoom room. And then the fact that they scrubbed my voice was, wow, amazing.
Wow. Yeah, exactly. We got about 20 minutes left here. And so you tell the story of Maurice. Maurice is kind of a useful idiot. He moves on. But and all the stuff that Maurice had done on that day, when I'm looking at the timeline, why George Floyd?
Why George Floyd? Because they chose George Floyd to be the Rodney King 2.0. And I would argue that he didn't know he was going to die. If you see my movie, you see that almost to the year before, George did the same shtick, the same crap. So like this time, say I can't breathe. Keep saying I can't breathe. We're going to make you Rodney 2.0. So in my movie, I show the Follow Minneapolis took this out of context. But George Floyd says, I'm scared AF. When I stop breathing, it's going to go off on me, man. What's that all about, Georgie?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If he's told, look, when only one lab, NMS Labs, did the toxicology. If you don't say, hey, I want you to check for fentanyl. Hey, I want you to check for cyanide. Nobody checked for cyanide. So I say in my book, and one officer testifies during the trial of the federal officers, that it could be that something was in there that wasn't tested. Now, again, this is a duty to intervene exercise. Exactly. So when you have a tabletop exercise, it's like a Gordian knot. Is it excited delirium? Should have we load and go? Should he have been treated here? Because it's an exercise. And many of the people were, in fact, rookies. Two of the officers, oh, look who they cast as the extras, bystanders. We have a chokehold expert. Okay. We have a someone on their day off that's a firefighter. We have the Darnella. Oh, let's give Darnella a Pulitzer Prize. This Pulitzer Prize belongs to me, Darnella, not to you. Seriously. She won a Pulitzer Prize. And I mean, think about how fake and gay that she gets accolades by Spike Lee and another actress, well-known actress. It's like clown world on steroids. Right.
Well, it had to be. You're sitting there, you are doing the research and the timeline of all this, and they're just, like you said, it's on the editing floor. If it wasn't useful for their narrative, it didn't get included because they already had people kind of jujitsued into thinking what the conclusion was. So are you saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, in your discovery, are you saying that George Floyd might have been inoculated with fentanyl or given fentanyl through one of the pills? Because you show at one point he had taken some pills. Was that laced with fentanyl, unbeknownst to him?
It could have been laced with something that's not even mentioned, is what I'm saying. And regardless, it's multi-layered, right? So it was laced with fentanyl. It was found in his body, and it's all an FU as to what's really going on. What I mean by that is that everybody knows today someone who's died because of fentanyl. This is ravishing our country, our people. They are pinning the tail on the Mexican cartel. Well, the guy who shanked Derek is telling me that they don't want to go after women or yeah, the guy who's in the Mexican cartel. He's a MA, top and got socially engineered. Like, do we even know that Derek is alive? Seriously.
No.
Why is it a year and a half later, nobody knows the details? And the one person, that's me, that knows the details about the shanking, hey, where are you, Tucker? Why? Hey, I'm available. Right? So what's the deal with that? It's not like, even, so when you start seeing your own colleagues, like, it's all like who's who in the zoo. And, well, it's true. Yeah, who's who in the zoo? The real heroes are not selling precious metals and making tons of money. I mean, they've transhumanism plus vaccines plus George Floyd equals no bueno for the B lady.
Right, exactly.
It's not a good triple. So, but again, I didn't know what I was going to find. I'm just a damn good journalist.
Right.
And I thought silly me coming from Montreal, Canada, I mean, like I'm Egyptian Greek, that if you work hard, you can make a name for yourself. And the truth is, I mean, some people in some circles, people think I'm a celebrity, but most circles, even though don't even know I exist because they've silenced me. And, in journalism school, they tell you use big numbers. So all of these followers, everything, it's like 101 ways to get a man. It's just smoke and mirrors, people. It's just smoke and mirrors. And so, after the fact, I've realized just think of your favorite series like Game of Thrones or Westworld, how nuanced and detailed it is. It's the same thing here.
Right.
It's the same thing. Like I'll tell you, I purchased all of his mugshots. Do you know that they use 3 different people to create the story, like who George Floyd is? Once I tell you, I found hush money. I found links to the Podesta group. That's what's like. Oh, you had later Bishop Gator just the other day, say I don't want to get killed. Who is he really talking to?
Right.
Like, you're going to tell me you don't know about me or my or this book, that they're dribbling the truth, because Derek Chauvin is like a modern Martin Bird. Like there's a chapter that I say Ozarks on COVID-19. So I'll just share some of the chapters because there's a lot of them. But so George Floyd, hot off the press, I Can't Breathe is Born Again, A Tale of Two Autopsies, Conga Latin Bistro. Just watch the video. El Nuevo Rodeo and Maya Lopez Santa Maria. David Pinney, just another Black guy. The Politics Behind Prosecution, Keith Ellison Revisited. The Sabris, who are the ones who own the building. This is a Drill, Duty to Intervene, Live Exercise Activated. 6 Ways to Detect a False Flag. And there was another one on basically the cornerstone, Hush Money and the Floyd family legacy. I mean, the Floyd family threatened me, and the Floyd family has trademarked everything from keychains to slippers, yo.
Unbelievable. I mean, $27 million from the city wasn't enough, huh?
Oh, no, they banked way more than that. I mean, just if I were to tell you, you could find out who organized the 4 funerals while we buried people via Zoom. They changed our death rituals during the Rona.
Exactly.
The way
Right.
we honor our dead, like
Mhm.
literally, I had to bury my uncle via Zoom.
Oh my gosh. And and that was the thing that was heartbreaking to me, Miriam, as this was going on, because I said to our audience, I said, you have relatives dying in the hospital and nobody's there with them as they pass. How cold has our country become to allow such a thing to occur? And then now, when we realized all these years later that we got lied to, people died, and you got the likes of Fauci and the people from the National Institute of Health getting away scot-free. I
Yeah,
mean, it's disgusting.
I mean, it is excuse me, it is disgusting. It's disgusting how so few stood up for the truth.
Right.
And it's disgusting how many fell for this psychological operation that has divided us forever.
Well, the bottom line of this, Miriam, as you said, with this PSYOP and all that's going on, Tavistock's involvement, what is the bottom line here? Are they just, do they want, is this all going toward a one world government movement? Is this all, what are they trying? I mean, obviously they're trying to undermine the foundational infrastructure of America.
I would say when you distill all the lies, that the biggest lie of all and what they don't want people to know is their innate divinity, how amazing we are.
Yeah.
And they're dumbing us down, and it's not for the faint of heart. It really isn't. When I joke that the mascot has become the ostrich. Just stick your head, right? Plus everyone is being squeezed. So who has the time to really do an internal inventory and to have integrity? We're not prizing integrity. And I stand for sacredness, for divinity, for, there is absolute truths. Yes, truth is subjective, but there is divine truth. There's absolute truth. And all you have to say is like, this had nothing to do with systemic racism. I called Benjamin Crump. Hey, how about Maurice Lester Hall? Do you care about his Black life? No.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's all smoke and mirrors. And that's why I'm very confident, because I hold the receipts, not only about this. It's like someone the other day said, yeah, well, from what I heard, vaccines are safe. But sometimes it's like, dude, this isn't even a vaccine. They changed the definition in September 2021. This is not a vaccine. So like, you have opinion, I have facts, and but yet they're living.
And I love that they said, I heard. Why is it that you don't know? This is why, even like with our conversation, and I always have this as a covenant with my audience, is saying, look, don't just take our word for it. I bring people to you, expose you to these people, so that you would be motivated to ask some questions and own your own knowledge. Don't just take our word for it. It's up to you, out of respect for you as an individual and your own dignity, that you should know that not that you're relying on somebody else.
Well, the fact of gnosis, or knowing things, there's some things that we know without explaining, and that's very threatening. The Gnostics were, they've been persecuted because it comes off as arrogance. But in this situation, it's like, did you call the CDC? Did you call the FDA? Did you call Pfizer? Did you read hundreds of studies? Did you speak to vaccine injured humans? No. So please, you have an opinion. I'm carrying facts, and I'm constantly conducting informal polls, because I'm always looking at patterns. I'm asking people questions, and that's why even saying people are not embodied, like they specifically purposely created a shot to target the heart. The heart is 5,000 times stronger than the brain. It has a beautiful resonance, and miracles can happen with our heart if we're in our, and so it's, the overall scheme of things is to, like I said, take us away from our innate divinity, to lower our chakras that keep us consuming, and we're becoming batteries.
Right.
We're becoming batteries.
We've been zombified. You're exactly right. I love your term on that, because I mean, hear about zombie movie, watch them. I've never really been into that, but I can see again patterns. You see this stuff, and you go, "Okay, what is Hollywood? What's the entertainment industry telling us?" It's all these different bits of information coming into our minds to infiltrate and to corrupt our thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the CDC had a zombie kit. I mean, I am intuitive, and in 2013 I was saying the future is here. The zombies are now. Also in 2013, after making Vanishing of the Bees, I was hearing there is an abyss that's being formed between the people who see and the people who don't. And I had no idea what that meant. I do now.
Oh yeah.
I sure do.
Yeah,
we're living in two realities.
Yeah, it is, and it's very difficult, especially for people who do see. And let's just look at America and where our country is right now, as divided as it is. It is divided. There's no doubt about it. The challenge is the people who do see are they're left with, I don't know, maybe some level of compulsion, some enforcement to carry those that don't see. So you got to drag them along, whether it's individual citizens or states, because they don't know how to conduct their business. Like California, for example, they don't know how to handle fires, and they don't know how to handle protests and let them break out into full-blown riots that they say are mostly peaceful. These knuckleheads waste a lot of money, and then it takes everybody else, the ones who can see, to help them get out of the mess that they've created for themselves. And this has been a recurring cycle brought to you by, like you say, the divide that's in our country today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I no longer know whether we could drag them along. I mean, as a journalist whose job it is to report and don't shoot the messenger, but I've always been on a spiritual path since I was 13. I really invite people to develop their discernment, because there's a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing. Like Agent Smith is a real thing.
Right.
So this is a spiritual war, and they're after your soul. And, we have to do due diligence if we are on that path and we care about our soul and the future of our species, really.
Yeah. Well, there's so much to understand about all these events, you say layered events that occurred in and around George Floyd, if you have eyes to see. And these are all, I mean, we're seeing them as warning signals, are we not, Maryam?
Absolutely. I would say the warning signals have been there all along. It's the same tactics. I mean, in my chapter, 6 Ways to Detect a False Flag, I mean, I name a lot of previous false flags and the characteristics that are common with all of them. And so it's really, I mean, George Floyd and Derek Chauvin taught me a lot about the inverted matrix of BS.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. We live in an inverted world. It's like I was sharing with a group of men here recently, Maryam, that see what's happened is that the way God had designed things is that politics should be downstream of culture. But politics found a way to flip it, to invert it, and come upstream of culture. So now you have politics controlling culture. That's why we're in such chaos right now, among other reasons.
We also have, a lot of people that are talking tries, and not a lot of. I mean, journalists are an endangered species. Really.
Oh, the whole level. When I went to journalism school, the ethos of journalism has really been turned on its head. It's nothing. I mean, my professors back in those days, they're rolling in their graves to see what's happened to this time-honored profession that was so important to our Constitution, that it was a First Amendment right, freedom of the press. And look what happened. They're bound up, they're zombified, and here we are having to we're the effect of it. We've got about a minute left, Maryam, and I want you to kind of summarize, tell everybody where they can go to buy your book, to buy and support, buy the movie and support what you're doing on behalf of freedom-loving, truth-seeking people.
Yes, thank you so much, Bill. I would invite you. One, I would say that I have a show on Rumble called Truth Lives Here, and I look at metaphysics and health and wellness and more esoteric now. I'm not covering medical freedom or politics, and people can go to MaryamHenein.com. It's on my signature, MaryamHenein.com/George Floyd book, and they could get the book and the movie, and it does really support me and gets the word out there. People who have read the book are blown away by how comprehensive and the information that I found. So thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you, and God bless. Be well.
You too.
You got it. Maryam Henein, author of Operation George Floyd, a multi-layered psyop exposed, also the director of the documentary, The Real Timeline, available at her website. Well, I'll tell you, there's so much to this story of George Floyd. And I think, again, there's a rhythm, there's a pattern that's being thrust upon us that is conditioning us to accept that which is not true and to avoid the truth. And that is a very dangerous situation that we're in right now in today's America. And you got to understand, like the force of gravity, it keeps pulling. It's unrelenting. So the fight for truth, and I kind of sound like an old Superman opening, but the fight for truth and the American way continues. And it has to be important enough for you to, like our founding fathers, be willing to put it all on the line. And today, in varying instances, even as Maryam is citing, what she's had to do and the cost that she has paid because of the truth. I thank you. I thank you for being with us. You are a blessing. And I just pray that, you would continue to be blessed, that God would bless you and keep you, that he'd make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you, and that you would fully realize his peace. Thanks for being with us. Take care.